The ability to be creative has been a big part of what separates us humans from machines. But today, a new generation of generative AI applications is casting doubt on how wide that divide is. I think AI will change creativity in the ways we cannot imagine. This episode began with an interesting question: can machines really be creative? And to find the answer to the question, we have a long journey to take. This episode is a starting point for that. This is your host Vikram, and welcome to Glitch. Hello there. So this episode is not going to be in the usual template of mine. All my personal stuff and what's happening and where do you want to follow and new platforms and every other update is in the last part of this episode. I'll put a timestamp where this exact episode ends from technical point of view so that you can choose to ignore if you want to. Now coming to the topic. We have all been using tools like ChatGPT and DALL-E. Of course, it gives us an appearance of being able to carry out creative tasks such as writing a poem or painting a picture. But does it actually mean that computers are being truly creative or just simply going around and giving us the impression of creativity while in reality simply just following a set of pre-programmed instructions which are basically given by humans? I know this entire para which I spoke is like a definition from out of the book. But in order to tackle this seemingly complicated or a philosophical question, we need to start by defining what creativity actually is. I mean, if we go to dictionaries and it gives a simple definition of what exactly creativity is. It's the use of imagination or original ideas to create something. Pretty simple. I think the key here is the word called imagination. Imagination is a good starting point for this investigation I'm going to take. It's one of the key skills we associate our ability to have new ideas. In the quest to understand the workings of our human brain and how imagination as a process gets generated in our brain, I started researching. And that's the story of how I fell into this never-ending rabbit hole of research and reading about this wonderful world of AI and human brain. Let me take you through a simple recap of what we have achieved in this field of AI. AI can beat the best of humans in a game of chess. AI is in the cusp of autonomous driving cars, though I have some comments on that being worked with them already, but they are really good from what they were. And of course, large language models are enabling products like ChatGPT to compose poetry, translation between languages, and of course to write even code. Recently they tested ChatGPT that can even pass bar examination, scoring better than 90% of the lawyers. I wish it was there around to take my GREs when I was taking them. Okay, looking at the long arrow of AI achievements, it has always been hard to say how close we are to creating human level intelligence. So let me again give a short quote from this AI pioneer Marvin Minsky back in 1960s when he proclaimed that from 3 to 8 years, we will have a machine with the general intelligence of an average human being. Well, it did not happen. And now with all our large language models, many researchers have again proclaimed that the game is over because we are in the verge of achieving human level intelligence in AI. And along this journey, AI is getting smarter and it's getting harder to measure our progress towards this goal, yes. But my question is, if AI system outperforms human on a task, does it mean that AI system has captured how humans solve this task? Yeah, of course, my calculator is capable of crunching numbers faster than a human being, but does it mean that it actually understood the math behind it? Yeah, so in my job, I do use AI for helping me with code templates, and of course, there's this great GitHub Co-Pilot, which I interact mostly on day-to-day basis. And in a field like embedded system, it does perform really good and I'm seeing improvements in it. But the more I interact with AI applications like Copilot and ChatGPT, the more mesmerized I become by both its success and mistakes. Actually, in some ways it is brilliant, but in other ways it's super dumb. So let me give an example. I was trying to ask ChatGPT to explain the history of Polish language and its impact on bullish economy. Because I now live in Poland, I just wanted to know something from ChatGPT on my free time. And it did a really great job in explaining me in a really comprehensive essay. At the same time, when I asked the common sense question, the ChatGPT, it failed. I mean, I have been using ChatGPT from back the days when it was ChatGPT 3. I mean, it was called GPT 3. Now they have this GPT 4, a newer version, and it has corrected the answers for more simpler questions where you can still find plenty of examples where this GPT-4 engine is failing for, like, for example, on common sense question, theory of mind questions, etc, etc. But it's becoming really harder to find these examples for me to give here, because in some way it is becoming more like a game of whack-a-mole. Every time someone publishes an example of such questions and I find through something, in next version the company is like, OpenAI simply just use these examples as training models and just fix it in the next update. Kind of a patchwork. Or I mean, I can still give them this room for updating this with a training model. So indeed, the differences between AI and human intelligence are nothing short but confusing. I mean, I have always been intrigued by this question on why is that AI can just beat any human on earth with a game of chess but cannot load a dishwasher better than my 6-year-old niece here. Yes, we have covered a lot of ground on how great these generative AI models are in creating poems, solving puzzles, creating images. Now there arises a question, can computers have new ideas? I tried giving a definitive answer for this question. I mean, in order to really give a definitive answer to this question, it is actually no. No matter how impressive a piece of computer-generated poetry, artwork might be, it is always built from the blocks carved out of training from human data. A genuine question should be also, are humans capable of generating new ideas then? Well, we do have the skill called imagination, which is actually the ability to conjure new ideas and concepts. But how many of those, what we consider to be our original thoughts, are derived from the things we have previously seen, heard, read, experienced, or learned? I mean, it's our own training data, right? In my opinion, one point can be made on how we differ from machines is that we have connections we make between the things we previously experienced and new ideas we come up with. It is to do with something called humanity. Yeah, of course, we get trained, but we filter it through the lens of our own perceptions, feelings, beliefs, and experience, and that's what I call humanity. This rises to an entirely new idea of what makes us human, but that's where I started this podcast about. I mean, I did give you guys a lot of research from what I read, how AI is and what is generative AI, but again, getting back to my own question of what creativity is, that's where I want to revolve around this episode. Before proceeding any further, I wanted to give an example of what is my experience with such AI engines and applications right in the market. So I am a software developer, which you all know. I work in a domain called embedded systems. And right now my day revolves around using GitHub's Co-Pilot. So a software engineer's job is not about writing hundreds and thousands of lines of code every day. At the max, it revolves around us writing probably 1 or 2 lines of code, and then there's sometimes we just sit and write bunch of code like feature development and we publish. So it cannot be said how many lines of code a software developer in a day does. So in my job, most of the time, since my job revolves around bare metal programming, talking with the circuits and memory of the device itself, it's not exciting to look the way it is written. Programming language and coding is the way computer understands. It's a language you talk to the computer. So for me, I sit with designs, architecture of my feature and debugging the existing code, and I come up with some design constraints, and then I sit with programming or coding. So before coming into code, we have these things of fundamental block diagrams, flowcharts, pseudocodes, whatever you call it, and then we convert them into actual syntax. And conversion of this actual syntax is not an easy task. It's a painful, boring task, especially for me. I would rather not spend in coding. I would just spend in designing and thinking about the problem statement and trying to solve problems than writing actual code. Most of the programmers out there don't actually like writing codes, and especially in languages like C and pointers. Oh yeah. So that's when my GitHub Co-Pilot actually comes for handy tool. So what I do, I most of the times normally give prompts from what I have designed, what are my constraints, give a detailed, precise prompts to this Copilot, and it churns out templates of code for the module which are correct by syntax, and sometimes it needs rework here and there where I come in and give my logical debugging analysis, and this is where my Copilot comes in. In my honest experience and opinion, if you ask me, is AI like Copilot and things like this are able to generate their own code? Definitive answer is no, because I see how detailed the prompts need to be, and what happens if the prompts go a little bit on loop. The the model just goes crazy, and it doesn't, and you can literally see as a transparent look through medium where it's going wrong, and how dumb it is in certain aspects, and how blindly it's just following the underlying training model. You can compare this with the writing model of ChatGPT or anything. Once you ask ChatGPT in a generic way and expect it to give a detailed, deep analysis of your question, you can see how dumb ChatGPT gets. And that's when human intervention is needed in giving a right prompt for these tools to give you the expected result. So, while working and with all this thing which you spoke and me going on and on, what I want to emphasize is that being human and being intelligent is not just language model. If language was the way we said how intelligent humans are, then it's not the right way to even map our intelligence. Language has been written language, and communication has been modern in human life itself. Before even that, the life has been intelligent. There has been intelligent life on earth. So being human is not just communication alone. We communicate a lot, we think a lot without even talking. I mean, people in law might understand what I'm trying to say. These are emotions, these are also emotional intelligence, and there are things like how our eyes perceive the world, how we hear things, how we feel, how we smell. So there are a lot of senses in our human body where we see the world and we perceive the world, and then we connect these with our experiences and then come up with imagination, creativity, or logical reasoning, whatever you call it. Are the achievements of AI like ChatGPT alone intelligent enough for us? The answer is no. For example, I have worked with autonomous driving cars. There's a big pain and problem which we have in seeing the world through computer imaging. Yeah, we are good in spotting number plates, spotting tumors in images and everything, but they are not as localized and fast as our human eyes. The more I read about our human brain, human eyes, senses, I get so intrigued about biology. I don't want to go into biological lessons here. This is more on AI. So coming back to the topic, computer-based imaging is not yet there. The algorithms are really primitive, they are slow, and I have worked on underlying algorithms for AI imaging services recently. They need high energy, high processing, and they are not localized. And I wanted to give importance to the term localized because that's how we need these engines and models to be not running in a server, to be powerful enough, simple enough to run in a localized place where we can utilize the outputs of each such AI models and give a bigger picture of intelligence. So just one another sense, like the vision itself is not yet there. Yes, language model is huge. We have accomplished a long way in GPT and underlying algorithms and such, but it's not yet there in other senses. For example, if I get started with speech recognition, which is hearing equivalent, yeah, everyone who owns Alexa and Google Assistant in their home knows the pain in getting them triggered with their wake word. It's all in the wake word, like, hey Google, Alexa, Bixby, Siri. You need to say these terms for them to even get started. And after that, it's a big curse that it takes a lot of time. But I'm not blaming the system, I'm not blaming the engineers background there. It's not yet there. So I'm more interested in the architecture of AI, the process of AI, how we are processing this algorithm, the back end side of it than the results. Yes, ChatGPT 4 is really good in answering common sense questions, but doesn't mean it has solved the intelligent aspect of the entire word model. They have just patched it up. And coming to senses like touch, smell, I don't even want to get started over there. There's another thing called taste. So This is just five senses of human body. There are so many other things which need to come holistically for another level of intelligence to arrive in that. So we have a really long way to go. And why I'm talking about all this stuff is not to say, yeah, AI is still not there, people stop getting hyped. Yes, it needs the hype for the grants and people to get into this field of AI and start reading them. But at the same time, we also need to be modest in answering the questions like AI is not going crazy. We are not being replaced. I want to cover all this topic in the end. So which comes to the conclusion of this episode. There is no definite conclusion for this episode. I didn't want to have this because we are not done here. It is just a part 1 of a 4-part series I'm planning to cover in this entire topic. I'm not going to teach what is AI. I'm not going to teach how to program AI or how AI works in the real world. There are a lot of videos out there. I don't want to repeat. But I want to be excited with what is happening around us, how our human mind works, and I wanted to at least comprehend this excitement into this one episode where people who are listening are at least equally excited as me, or say, okay, you are just going on loops, shut up, it's all already known. I would be happy to even hear that, because it means that the community is already been educated by such things. I'm just the slow learner here. But that's the agenda of this entire 4-part series. I wanted to just say how amazing this AI is, and the end of the 4th episode I will have some conclusion, but we need to wait for that. In this episode I just want to address what being human itself is, how amazing we are, how a long way we have come from evolution, and that's it. So people who just came here for knowing the answer for the title which I had, the technical part of this episode is done. If you want, you can stay around. If not, it's fine. Now coming to the Vikram part of the glitch. So yeah, it's been a long due. I wanted to record this episode. The time which I started this episode was on March. One thing led to other. I had this book called Consciousness. Of course, I forgot the author name. I'll attach it in the end. But I bought this book called Consciousness back in March, and I started reading it. It was this amazing book which was talking to me in my own language. And since then, it was a big rabbit hole. I wanted to record an episode on consciousness. I wanted to record an episode on creativity. So many things were there. So I thought, okay, let me first prepare myself and read a lot. And then it started, like, I read a book on consciousness, and then I came around the book of Max Bennett, A Brief History of Intelligence. It speaks in the way of how evolution of the brain holds the key to the future of AI, and it's also an amazing book. I would highly recommend you people to read this book. So with such reading process and research, I just couldn't stop. It was just going on and on. So I come to a conclusion for my own glitch podcast is that not everything can be converted into a podcast episode. It requires a lot of traction and momentum. If it's just a small topic which excites me, doesn't hold enough for my audience to listen me talking about my own excitements. And of course, you people know I'm active on my social media, LinkedIn, and where I write articles on technical stuff. Instagram, people know what books I'm reading, what's my take on latest news and stuff, and other social media platforms. I thought I'll put everything together for my own references so that I can go back and collect my thought process. So I have signed up for Patreon account, and in Patreon I'm planning to put everything together. So there's Byte, where it's just a basic package. It's 5 PLN. I had to give the minimum amount. 5 PLN is Polish zlotys. I think it's equal. You need to convert it to your equivalent. I don't think it's much of the money. My agenda was not to keep high pricing here. So that should be enough. Byte package should be enough for you to just catch up with me, have my chats, forums, and what I'm reading, what is currently going on behind glitch, when is the next episode, things like this. Yeah, you know pretty much what happens in Patreon. And then there's source code. This is the next tier, which is 3 times the first package, which is 15 PLN, and you get to see my codings, because I do some projects on my free time and I post my codes and everything, schematics, circuit diagrams, how to do step-by-step guide and everything. So it comes in source code, and I kept source code because you can also suggest me what's my next topic and things like this. And then comes the third package, which is root access, and it's like the ultimate one where you have all the access and also the chance to co-host a next episode with me. So these are the three categories. Does it mean I will not be posting everything and nothing is freely accessible for you guys? No. Things will always be there on all the other platforms and it will be free. The things which are available in Patreon will also be available on free on LinkedIn, Instagram and everything. It's just that it will be scattered across. So if you want a code, you should go to my GitHub repository. It's all open source. If you want some articles, if you want to do a step-by-step guide and everything, it's of course there on ivikram.com. But this is a place where it's like a hub for me, and to host it I need some revenue out of it. It's not gonna serve my purpose, but it's fine. That's a huge update. I know I went on a big fast mode, but I had to give this update somewhere, so this is my update. But still, everything will be available, my blogs, glitch in free market, at the same time in Patreon. So if you want to support me, buy me a coffee, you can go to Patreon. I'll attach the links of all the messy social media stuff in this podcast link. And thanks for joining. It has been a long due episode. I will ensure I record the next 3 list of episodes at least fast enough so that you don't lose interest on this topic. And yeah, keep following me. Take care and ciao from Vikram.